the white tiger. This sacred beast is one of the 5 spirits. Of the 5 spirits, the white tiger is the only one whose habitat is known. The summit of Mount Cheongbai. It is explained that no one knows when these spiritual creatures called the 5 souls first appeared on this land or how they came to be. They are said to live for enormous ages, and when their spiritual power peaks, they ascend to the heavens and are reborn as immortals. As Yeo-Woon and Akui speed toward Heaven Lake at full speed, Yeo-Woon asks if the creature tried to ascend to the sky. Akui stays silent at first. Yeo-Woon sees the mountain peak ahead and a dark force there and thinks that contrary to its name, the white tiger is infinitely dark. Akui explains that it failed its ascension and rage and hatred took hold of its domain, turning it into this. He remembers that moment clearly when the sacred creature of Mount Cheongbai roared in fury as if it were crying while it transformed into a monster that would sweep the world into destruction. Yeo-Woon looks at his arm and says he's seen something similar before, referring to the heavenly demon sword. He tells how when he first obtained it, he saw in the fantasy world a man who fancied himself Cheon Ma cut the horn off an emoji that was about to become a dragon and ascend because he took it for an illusion. He thought the serpent was only turning black. He never expected it to become a monster that shook heaven and earth like this. When he recalls the whole white serpent turning that dark color in an instant, he wonders whether that serpent fell too. It resembled this monster. Yet with a single motion, it split a head into dozens of pieces. The more he learns, the more he realizes that that man's arts had truly reached the level of a sovereign. He speaks of Cheon Ma, the founder of the heavenly demon divine cult. Yeo-Woon then asks Akui whether the white-winged tiger might also have been obstructed during its attempt to ascend. Akui is taken aback and says nothing, only staring ahead. Yeo-Woon thinks to himself that there must be many stories behind all this and that further questions will be hard. Akui finally tells him that the bastard about 100 years ago lost his dearest friend and that is why he became like this. Yeo-Woon surprised asks a friend. Akui answers yes. That friend had been known to him a long time and was so extraordinary, he even befriended the guardian of Mount Cheongbai whom everyone feared. If he had not died so suddenly, none of this would have happened. Akoi murmurs that the bastard who kept his pack for about 100 years transformed into his true body and he wonders what drove him. Could it be someone else? Sometime earlier east of Mount Cheongbai, men of the Blade God 6 martial clan are heading for Heaven Lake where the white tiger dwells. Wang Heol and another clan member. The other man tells Wang Heol that a great battle seemed to have taken place to the north, and they must not miss this chance. Wang Heol replies there is said to be a place rich in spiritual energy near the summit. They will arrive soon and should begin searching that area. They reach the top and seeing the lake remark they did not expect such a large body of water on the mountaintop. Truly a mountain worthy of. Wang Heol turns to his men and orders them to search saying, the white tiger is said to be 3 times larger than a normal tiger, so it should not be hard to find. They obey and set out, then notice someone meditating. The men ask who the person is, and another answers he does not know. But judging by the way he controls his energy, he appears wounded. Suddenly, the white tiger vanishes from sight and reappears behind them. They are shocked and baffled at how that could be. The white tiger, furious that these filthy bastards dared to trespass on Baked a Mountain and rinse them with its sword, shouting that it will kill them all. Hearing the roar, Wang Heol moves toward the sound and orders the others to advance, calling for left great elder and right great elder, and saying something seems to have happened below. What they see is the white tiger beginning to massacre every member of the Blade God 6 martial clan who stands before it. The white tiger rages as it slaughters, mocking that they only know how to move in groups and daring them to come forward so it can tear them apart. Wang Heol and his 2 companions watch their men fall. One of them notes that the beast does not speak the Chinese tongue. Perhaps a dawn guardian of the place. Another remarks on the unique sword technique, saying it is a style he has never seen. Wang Heol thinks it is sword art powerful enough to rival the supreme martial arts and wonders whether another expert is hiding here besides Akui. The man with Wang Heol says the situation cannot continue and that at this rate they will all perish. He vows to intervene personally and charges the white tiger. Wang Heol calls him left great elder, but the other says not to worry. Wang Heol, the old man's supreme arts surpass his own. The white tiger notices a strong opponent approaching. Left great elder strikes from above, but the white tiger blocks the blow. The left great elder orders the beast to be quiet. The white tiger snaps back angrily. The left great elder then charges a kick and lands it on the white tiger's chest, tossing it several meters. The white tiger feels the impact, drops to a knee and roars in fury, berating the left great elder for daring to kick it. The left great elder tells his men to get out of there, saying he will kill that bastard, and mutters that he cannot understand what the creature is saying, but somehow feels enraged. Then he throws himself at it. They clash, swords ringing, and the bald fighter cries out with excitement that the sword is strange. Truly strange. Yet every movement is a killing blow. He laughs saying, "This is fun." The white tiger, watching the technique, seems to recognize it, and with a mighty strike, creates distance between them. The bald man asks why it suddenly stops when they were enjoying themselves. The white tiger drops its sword into the lake and says that move is familiar. So it was him. Could they be the ones who killed his friend? The bald man, bewildered, protests that he cannot understand and finds the creature frustrating. The white tiger loses control and releases all its power. The bald man is astonished as the creature transforms into an enormous beast. A blast sends water from the lake flying into the air, and the men of the Blade God's 6 martial clan are stunned. The bald man is hurled away and his arm is wounded. The others help him up as the waves close in. Yahello asks if he is all right. He replies he has lost an arm and is not fine. The men spot a figure in the water with eyes glowing red and cry out in shock, asking what that thing is. The white tiger has fully become a beast and emits a roar so powerful that the ears of the men begin to bleed. Right Great Elder, shocked, says that a man who was once whole has transformed into a monster like this. What could all this possibly mean? The bald man shouts at him, asking if he still cannot see and saying that his eye seems completely useless. Yahello stunned notes that with a single roar, members of the group and the disciples fell, and he wonders what to do now. The white tiger now has 3 tails, and its eye gleams more fiercely than ever. Yahello, seeing it, asks if that is truly the white tiger they sought. Crows rise into the air, and Yahello and his companions look like ants beside it. The creature seems unstoppable. Yahello adds that the monster appears to exceed 90 m. The warriors of the Blade God's 6 martial clan unleash the full weight of their powers upon the beast, but to him they are nothing more than buzzing flies. Yet he notices them. One of the men screams that the creature is reacting, frantically, ordering the others to open fire from all sides. He believes that while the beast is huge, it must be slow. But he is dead wrong. With a single devastating kick, the white tiger shatters their formation, destroying everything and tearing several men to pieces in an instant. Yahello stands frozen, completely shocked by this overwhelming display of power. As the severed limbs of his allies fly through the air, he whispers to himself that a single kick just sent dozens of elite warriors flying. Watching this one-sided massacre, he realizes this is impossible. This isn't something mere martial art clan can handle. Meanwhile, the white tiger lets out a thunderous roar and begins to lay waste to everything in its sight. Yahello continues to watch in awe, describing the scene as a true natural disaster. Compared to the white tiger, he feels like nothing more than a tiny ant. The sheer pressure of the beast's power creates a blood-red tornado that surges toward the men of the Blade God's 6 martial clan. Terrified, they scream that it's coming their way and tell everyone to run. The bald man, seeing the whirlwind approach, wonders how the wind itself can be that sharp. His companion, the pirate who serves as Yahello's left hand, adds that such a phenomenon makes the fight nearly impossible. As they flee from the white tiger's wrath, the pirate looks at the bald man and remarks how brutally vicious the situation has become, mockingly asking the one-armed old man if he has a better way to deal with it. Enraged, the bald man snaps back, asking if the pirate wants him to gouge out his remaining eye as well. In the midst of the chaos, Yahello reflects on the beast's terrifying power, noting that it is on a completely different level than the Great Rock. Suddenly, the 3 of them stop in their tracks before a man who calmly observes the scene. He comments that so this is the fallen spirit beast he has heard so much about. Blade Lord has finally entered the fray. The 3 warriors are stunned to see him. The bald man exclaims that Blade Lord has arrived while Yahello immediately kneels in respect. Internally, Yahello is shocked, remembering they had heard Blade Lord was busy holding back the full force of the Orthodox Alliance before joining them. He can't believe he is here already. The pirate asks Blade Lord what they should do about the monster, but Blade Lord simply tells them not to interfere. He declares that he will handle it himself. Though his subordinates are surprised, Blade Lord doesn't hesitate for a second and lunges toward the white tiger. Standing before the massive tornado created by the beast, he swings his hand, unleashing a concentrated strike of energy that slices the whirlwind clean in half. His men are left speechless by his sheer potency, shouting that it's Blade Lord and marveling at how he cut through the storm. Having neutralized the tornado, the leader of the Blade God's 6 martial clan charges straight for the white tiger. The beast notices him, and with a deafening cry charges a powerful strike in its paw. However, Blade Lord draws his sword and parries the blow effortlessly. In a stunning display of raw strength, he actually overpowers the white tiger and manages to wound its hand. Blade Lord is visibly exhilarated by the fact that he managed to cut the beast. With a dark smile, he thinks to himself that he has finally obtained the power of a martial god. He recalls what was shown 20 years ago, the unification of power. Closing in on the beast's head, he confidently declares that he will sever it in a single stroke. The white tiger, however, is far from finished. It begins to condense a sphere of massive energy in front of its mouth, reminiscent of a tailed beast bomb. At point-blank range, it releases the energy like a massive cannon, hitting Blade Lord Hedon and slamming him into the ground. The beast immediately follows up by driving its paw toward the fallen Blade Lord, but Blade Lord manifests his ice powers to block the strike. He then begins to encase the tiger's limb in ice, catching the beast off guard. Blade Lord leaps into the air, reaching the white tiger's height. In addition to his primary sword, he forms two formless blades and tells the beast that this is the end, declaring he will take the origin core. He strikes the white tiger squarely in the chest with the formless blades. As the beast howls in agony, Blade Lord begins to freeze it from the chest outward. In a final desperate act of defiance, the white tiger swings its paw, connecting with a powerful blow that sends Blade Lord flying. Wang Heol watches in horror, but the leader is still alive. He has been sent crashing into the earth, creating a massive crater. Spitting blood, Blade Lord explains that he couldn't defend properly because he was too focused on maintaining the formless sword. He stands back up, admitting the beast is putting up quite a fight. As he prepares for another assault, he notes that while he took some shock damage, his internal injuries have already healed thanks to the origin core he previously absorbed. He believes that if he pushes just a little more, he will be able to kill it. Suddenly, his expression shifts drastically as he senses something terrifying. He looks up, stammering in disbelief at the overwhelming energy he feels. A streak of dark energy suddenly tears through the sky, heading straight for the white tiger. It strikes the beast from behind, piercing it through the body and likely ending its life. Blade Lord of the Blade Gods' 6 martial clan stands there completely shocked, wondering who could possibly possess such power. The white tiger loses consciousness and collapses to the ground. A gaping hole torn through the center of its chest. As the massive beast falls, it crashes into the lake at the mountain's summit, sending a wall of water hundreds of meters into the air. The impact creates a localized tornado, raining jagged shards of ice, previously frozen by the Blade Gods' 6 martial clan down upon the clan's own men. Through the hollow cavity in the beast's chest, the prize is finally visible, the creature's core. The warriors of the Blade Gods' 6 martial clan erupt in cheers. One man stares in awe, remarking that they are finally seeing the wind white tiger's core, but another looks on with growing dread, wondering aloud what that devastating lightning strike from moments ago actually was. Their leader's voice cuts through the celebration like a whip, screaming at them to stop acting like morons and secure the core immediately. However, Yeo-Woon is faster. He is in his advanced suit. He reaches the white tiger first, snatching the core and escaping back through the hole in its chest. As he emerges, his new suit is on full display. A sleek pitch-black armor with vibrant glowing accents of purple and magenta illuminating his eyes. He looks like a dark god reminiscent of the Shadow Soldier after being summoned. He begins to retract the suit, revealing his face, and Wang Heol gasps in recognition, identifying him as the demon god. The bald warrior stands frozen in shock, unable to believe the demon god is standing right before them, holding the white tiger's core in his hand with a smirk playing on his lips. Yeo-Woon looks at them and simply says, "Good work." The leader of the Blade God's 6 martial clan is consumed by fury, watching his ultimate prize being stolen right from under his nose. A little while earlier, Yeo-Woon was traveling with Akui toward the mountain peak where the white tiger resided. Akui confessed that he had devoted nearly 100 years to trying to purify the creature so it might ascend again according to the will of light. But now that path was closed. He explained that since the beast had cast aside the restraint of its covenant and transformed into its true body, it would stain the central plains with blood. Just as the 6-headed dragon turtle once wiped out the people during the age of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. Originally, this mission was entrusted to Akui. But seeing the impossible odds, he turned to Yeo-Woon and asked him to kill the creature with his own hands. Yeo-Woon asked if he was sure he wouldn't regret it. Akui replied that while he held the creature back for a century out of affection and the greater cause, he could not allow that same affection to lead to the deaths of innocent people. Watching him, Yeo-Woon mused to himself that for those who possess power, the safety of the innocent usually comes second, even for martial artists. Yet here was this war god, a man stronger than almost anyone, resolving to sever attachment just to prevent a slaughter. To Yeo-Woon, he was a true man of chivalry, far more deserving of respect than the warriors of the Martial Artists Alliance, who constantly boast of shallow justice. Accepting the task, Yeo-Woon told Akoi that if he was to grant the request, he needed to hurry. Akoi was taken aback. He knew Yeo-Woon's lightness skill at full power was already equal to his own, so he wondered what else the young master could possibly be planning. Suddenly, Nano's technology activated. A black suit began to envelop Yeo-Woon's body, creeping up from his torso to his head. As Akoi watched in utter disbelief, Yeo-Woon told him he was going ahead and vanished. He moved at supersonic speeds, leaving a stunned Akoi several meters behind, wondering what in the world he was witnessing. Using the thruster on his legs, much like a high-tech suit of armor, Yeo-Woon reached the summit and saw the White Tiger locked in combat with the Blade God 6 Martial Clan. He activated his special vision to scan the beast, noting the terrifying unification of power it possessed. As the White Tiger unleashed its devastating strength, Yeo-Woon watched the battle unfold. He analyzed the Blade Lord's overwhelming power, noting that the man had frozen nearly 1/5 of the vast lake in a single instant. He recalled his grandfather's words that the Blade Lord, leader of the Blade God's 6 Martial Clan, had led his full force to obtain the Great Ping's core at the Patala Palace. He realized then that the man before him must be the Blade Lord himself. He noted that after the Great Pong, the man now dared to target the Wind White Tiger's core as well. He commanded Nano to find the concentration of spiritual power within the giant black tiger's body. Nano analyzed the beast and reported that a massive amount of energy was concentrated in the chest area along the neck. Yeo-Woon decided he couldn't let them take the core. He knew that if he intervened too early, he would only be caught in the crossfire between the tiger and the Blade Lord. He resolved to strike only when the beast was weakened by the Blade Lord's attack. Back in the present, Yeo-Woon feels the tremendous spiritual power vibrating from the core in his hand and notes that the plan succeeded. The White Tiger, however, is still clinging to life, moving slightly and emitting a low, pained roar. Yeo-Woon observes it, musing that to a martial artist, this must feel like having their Danton destroyed, but it is a better fate than letting it fall into the clan's hands. Wang Heol screams at him, calling him the demon god and asking if he has no shame, committing theft like a common street pickpocket. The pirate standing nearby is more concerned with Yeo-Woon's strength. Thinking to himself that the power in that single strike was breathtaking, he is floored by the fact that Yeo-Woon pierced the beast's body in one blow, something even the Blade Lord couldn't manage. He calls the demon god even more of a monster than the rumor suggested. The bald warrior adds that it seems no one but the Blade Lord could possibly face him. Wang Heol, however, refuses to back down, insisting they must kill the demon god here and now. Because, according to the records left by that person, they absolutely must. The Blade Lord interrupts with a furious roar, calling Yeo-Woon a bastard. As he charges forward, he unleashes a downward slash of formless blade energy. Yeo-Woon counters with his own formless blade, and the two energies collide in midair. Shards of sharp sword energy rain down, forcing the clan members to scatter and scream for everyone to avoid the fragments. The Blade Lord glares at him, demanding the demon god hand over the core. Yeo-Woon calmly asks him who he is. The Blade Lord is insulted. Having expected Yeo-Woon to have more discernment, he creates several more formless blades and launches them. Declaring that he is the one who stands at the pinnacle of all blades, he unleashes his technique, the Extreme Blade God Art, Sword Form, Extreme Speed Killing Blade. Yeo-Woon is internally impressed, noting that to unleash such a technique without even a drawing motion proves the man's claim to the pinnacle isn't an exaggeration. He counters by creating his own formless blades, parrying every single one of the Blade Lord's strikes. However, the Blade Lord uses the opening to vanish and reappear behind Yeo-Woon, catching him off guard. As he swings his blade, he yells that he is taking back what was stolen. Yeo-Woon spins around instantly, but instead of a sword, he thrusts the White Tiger's core forward. The Blade Lord calls him shameless for using the core as a shield and shifts his aim toward Yeo-Woon's head, but he suddenly senses something wrong and recoils. A massive explosion of energy crashes down from above. The Blade Lord looks up, recognizing flicked sword energy. He realizes someone is above them. He spots an ice sword enveloped in pure sword energy and is stunned. He knows he can create an ice sword using the in energy of the Great Pong. But he isn't confident he could make the sword energy endure like that. He looks at Yeo-Woon and admits it is amazing that Yeo-Woon is the first master he has seen in 20 years who has achieved this level. He points his sword at the demon god, his resolve hardening as he declares that he cannot let him take the core. The Blade Lord begins to manifest razor-sharp shards of ice, his energy chilling the very air as he surrounds Yeo-Woon. With a sneer of superiority, he taunts his opponent, claiming that even though he hasn't reached the ultimate stage of material energy manifestation, he is more than capable of wielding such power. He directs the frozen spikes at Yeo-Woon with lethal intent, but the shards suddenly lose their momentum, decelerating until they hang motionless in the air. Yeo-Woon simply observes them, his gaze cold and impenetrable. Stunned, the Blade Lord wonders if his reign of ice has truly been halted or if Yeo-Woon is somehow corroding his internal kai. Before he can react, Yeo-Woon seizes total control of the shards and hurls them back. The Blade Lord is forced to leap into the air, narrowly evading the lethal counterattack. The ice shards pursue him through the sky like heat-seeking missiles. The Blade Lord forms his formless blade, scoffing that these are still nothing more than mere fragments of ice. With a series of blindingly fast strikes, he shatters several of the projectiles into dust. He remarks that facing the heavenly demon with such cheap tricks is ultimately a waste of time, but he is cut short. He realizes that a new cluster of ice has manifested directly beneath him. Yeo-Woon calmly explains that the celestial flash is not a technique designed solely for wide-area destruction, as multiple ice swords materialize in an instant, locking onto the Blade Lord from every conceivable angle. Seeing the frozen blades closing in, the Blade Lord lets out a scream of pure fury. He swings his blade, unleashing a spatial distortion strike that causes the ice swords to bend and collapse upon themselves before they are utterly obliterated. Yeo-Woon is genuinely impressed by the maneuver, recognizing that his enemy is employing energy unification and concentration. He reflects on how the Blade Lord distorted the very fabric of space to block the celestial flash. A martial feat so monumental it rivals even the god of war. In fact, having absorbed the spiritual cores of several mythical beasts, the Blade Lord has evolved into an even more treacherous adversary than expected. Watching the godlike exchange from the sidelines, the bald elder is left trembling, wondering aloud if this is truly a battle between mortals. His pirate companion adds that it is the first time in his life he has ever witnessed a dispute of such high caliber. Wang Heol stands frozen in awe, thinking to himself that seeing their leader pressured in such a way proves both combatants are absolute monsters. Suddenly, a primal roar echoes from below, catching both Yeo-Woon and the Blade Lord off guard. The white tiger rises back onto its four legs. Despite the gaping hole in its chest, the beast snarls with a terrifying, unyielding bloodlust. The Blade Lord is visibly shaken, and Yeo-Woon wonders how the creature can still be standing after losing its core. The white tiger emits a roar so powerful it sends a physical shockwave of energy rippling toward them. Suddenly, a shadow descends from the clouds, striking the beast with overwhelming force and pinning it to the dirt. The Blade Lord is stunned to see the god of war himself. He recognizes him as the monster who handed him the first humiliating defeat of his life, shattering the pride he once took in his perfect saber art. Because of that man, the great plan was delayed, and the Blade Lord was forced into 20 years of bitter seclusion. Even now, the man's appearance remains unchanged, though his right great elder appears to be injured. Still, the fact that he suppressed the giant tiger with a single blow using only his left hand is nothing short of miraculous. Wang Heol watches in a cold sweat, wondering if the god of war's arrival means the heavenly demon failed to finish him off. He notices the god of war's arm is slightly twisted and realizes that even this legend was likely bested by the heavenly demon. Knowing that Yeo-Woon is not the type to show mercy, Wang Heol deduces that their duel must have been interrupted by the tiger's rampage. A sinister grin spreads across his face as he realizes he can manipulate the situation to force a rematch between the two titans. He screams at the top of his lungs, alerting the god of war that the white tiger's core is currently in Yeo-Woon's possession. The god of war looks up, his eyes locking onto the core in Yeo-Woon's hand. He muses that although he was the one who requested it, he didn't expect the extraction to happen so swiftly. He then turns his attention to the beast, puzzled as to why it remains alive since spiritual creatures should perish the moment they are stripped of their core. Wang Heol continues to provoke him, asking if he will simply stand by and let the man walk away with the prize, mocking him by asking if his previous defeat has turned him into a coward. Before he can finish his taunt, the god of war raises his fist, unleashing a devastating pressure toward Wang Heol. His allies, the bald elder and the pirate, shout for him to retreat as they rush forward to intercept the strike. They strain against the overwhelming power, barely managing to split the energy in two. Though they take the brunt of the impact and are heavily damaged, their intervention saves Wanghyo from certain death. The warriors of the Blade God's 6 martial clan are horrified by this display of raw power. One of them screams in disbelief, wondering how even the great Grand Masters were unable to withstand a single punch. All three fall to their knees with the bald elder and the pirate coughing up blood from the internal trauma. Wanghyo asks if they are all right, his teeth grinding in a mix of rage and fear. He realizes that these 2 elders, the masters who trained the leaders of the 6 martial sects, should have been able to deflect the blow with ease. Instead, 2 men who rival the 5 strongest masters in the world have been crippled by a single casual strike. The pirate struggles to breathe, urgently, telling Wanghyo to begin circulating his energy to survive the internal damage. The Blade Lord watches his subordinates fall, dismissing their struggle as a futile effort. Deep down, however, he feels a burning desire to avenge the humiliation he suffered 2 decades ago. But for now, he cannot afford to take his eyes off the heavenly demon. He decides the only path forward is to slay Yeo-Woon, seize the core, and then deal with the god of war. He sends a telepathic command to Wanghyo, ordering the elders to use every bit of their remaining strength to keep the god of war out of his fight. The bald elder nods weakly and bellows to his men that their opponent is the god of war and they must stop him at any cost, even if it means their very lives. Before the command can be carried out, a massive shadow looms over them. Wanghyo turns around to see the white tiger standing tall once again, its mouth dripping with gore. The beast lets out a roar that vibrates through the earth, leaving the clan members paralyzed with fear. They scream in terror, wondering how it could possibly be alive after the god of war's full-force strike. Wanghyo feels the crushing weight of the tiger's bloodlust. Terrified by the nature of a beast that can overcome the loss of its spiritual core, the god of war is equally surprised, noting that the creature endured a direct hit meant to kill. He realizes that the beast has transcended physical pain and death, driven now by nothing but pure unadulterated hatred. As the situation turns critical, the white tiger releases its full destructive potential, summoning multiple massive tornadoes that tear through the landscape with the largest vortex spiraling around the beast itself. It seeks total vengeance for the death of its companion, and its eyes are fixed squarely on the men of the Blade God's 6 martial clan. The battlefield is transformed into a literal hell as the men of the Blade God's 6 martial clan are frozen in a state of pure unadulterated shock. They cry out in terror, wondering how a storm of this magnitude, a tempest of howling winds and jagged thunderous lightning, could possibly manifest so suddenly. The gale is so punishing that these elite warriors struggle just to keep their footing. The wind tears at their clothes and threatens to lift them off the earth. Several men are unable to resist the vacuum of the vortex and are sucked helplessly into the heart of the spiraling tornado. Desperate screams fill the air as they realize that even the 1000 lb weight technique, which should anchor them to the ground, is utterly useless against this primordial force of nature. Yeo-Woon watches this chaotic spectacle with focused intensity, his eyes tracking the enemy soldiers as they are swept away like leaves in a hurricane, disappearing into the dark of the storm. His attention shifts and his eyes widen with genuine surprise when he looks at the white tiger. He watches in disbelief as the massive hole in the creature's chest begins to knit itself back together, the flesh regenerating with unnatural speed. Yeo-Woon realizes that if the beast's spiritual power had truly dropped to zero, such a miraculous recovery would be impossible. This isn't just a final desperate burst of energy before the end. The white tiger is very much alive, its life force surging back with terrifying potency. The beast unleashes a roar that vibrates through the very bones of everyone present. The sound is so bone-shaking that Akui finds it nearly impossible to maintain his position atop the tiger's back. He is forced to use his only functional limb, his left hand, to white-knuckle his grip on the creature's thick fur, fighting against the centrifugal force of the beast's movements. In that moment, Akui is hit by a wave of haunting nostalgia. He thinks to himself that this is exactly like that time over 100 years ago. The dark days when the white tiger ran wild and utterly decimated the lands surrounding Jungbeek Mountain, transforming a lush region into a desolate land of death. He confirms his grim suspicion. The beast is a true monster that can only be silenced if its neck is completely severed. Nearby, even the Blade Lord is forced to shield his eyes, his hand raised against the blinding dust and the sheer pressure of the wind. Yet, as he stares at the white tiger, a cold, calculating thought crosses his mind. He muses that this chaos might actually be a blessing in disguise. While the war god is occupied dealing with the wind-controlling monstrosity, he decides he will take this opportunity to eliminate the demon god once and for all. Pointing directly at his rival, the Blade Lord declares with absolute certainty that he will kill Yeo-Woon right here, effectively rewriting the future to suit his own ends. Yeo-Woon is momentarily stunned by the statement, his mind racing as he repeats the word future in his head, wondering what secrets the Blade Lord is hiding. But there is no time for questions. The Blade Lord manifests a massive formless blade above his head, a shimmering construct of pure energy, and hurls it toward Yeo-Woon. Not stopping there, he follows up with a second formless blade forged of lethal biting ice. It is a devastating combined assault, blending the first form of the Blade God's supreme technique with the Blade Extreme Finger Strike. Yeo-Woon immediately centers himself, preparing to manifest his own formless blades to counter the incoming strike. He senses the lethality of the attack, noting that the extreme and cold carried within the enemy's blade is so potent that the very air in its path is freezing solid, leaving a trail of frost in the sky. As Yeo-Woon drops into his combat stance, the Blade Lord's eyes narrow in recognition. He identifies the posture as the Heavenly Demon Sword Art. He sneers internally, recalling the records left by that person. He believes that even if Yeo-Woon is the demon god, he can never emerge victorious in this clash. The Blade Lord is convinced of his superiority because he claims to have found the secret to breaking the Heavenly Demon's sword style long ago. He shouts at his opponent, asserting that even a technique created by the Heavenly Demon himself is no longer enough to defeat the might of him. Undeterred, Yeo-Woon summons the same dark, oppressive, formless blade he used to shatter Akui's arm and sends it flying toward his foe. The Blade Lord is taken aback as the weapon approaches. Shocked to see a formless sword composed of black flames, he wonders how Yeo-Woon could have possibly infused a completely different volatile kind of chi into a formless weapon. He launches his own blade to intercept the strike, and the two forces collide with a deafening explosion. The impact shatters both blades into 1,000 jagged shards of energy, but Yeo-Woon doesn't miss a beat. He exerts his will over the broken pieces, commanding the fragments to swarm the Blade Lord like a cloud of lethal hornets. The Blade Lord finds himself on the defensive, struggling desperately to parry the unorthodox swarm. He realizes with growing dread that while this style feels familiar, it is fundamentally different from the traditional Heavenly Demon Sword Art. The forms are alien, as if the Heavenly Demon's techniques and Gupta Simu have been fused into a single perfect entity. He is shaken to his core, realizing this development contradicts everything in that person's record. He reaches a terrifying conclusion. This new sword art is flawless, unbreakable, and is completely overwhelming his Gupta Simu. As he frantically tries to deflect the relentless barrage of strikes, the Blade Lord loses his composure. He screams, demanding to know what kind of sword art this is. Yeo-Woon, standing tall with a look of calm pride, simply replies that he is witnessing the demon god's sword art. The name sends a chill through the Blade Lord, who realizes that no such technique was ever mentioned in the historical records he relies on. As their energies clash once more, Yeo-Woon activates the third form, Heavenly Killing Extreme Sword. His formless blade gains a terrifying momentum, completely obliterating the Blade Lord's defenses. The blade streaks toward the enemy at a speed that defies the eye. The Blade Lord prepares to make a final stand, but the perspective suddenly shifts away from the duel and into the mind of the White Tiger. Deep within the swirling heart of its own storm, the White Tiger is pulled into the depths of a very old memory. It remembers its home on the Sacred Mountain, a place that once drew countless visitors from both the southeastern peninsula and the northwestern central plains. The mountain was plagued by martial artists and Taoists who claimed to be seeking the path of immortality. However, the tigers saw through them all. They were all equally honest in their naked greed. They all sought the origin core, the source of the tiger's spiritual power, which had been the target of humans since the moment the beast was born. The White Tiger had no desire for conflict. It only wanted to gather its power in silence and eventually ascend to a higher plane in peace. To the beast, these humans were nothing more than a persistent, irritating nuisance. Even when it felt its anger rising, it avoided unnecessary bloodshed, preferring to remain hidden from the world. The tiger recalls that once it had accumulated enough power to ascend, it gained the ability to shape-shift, making it much easier to evade the hunters. As the centuries passed, a new winged White Tiger was born. The arrival of this successor meant that the elder's time to leave this world was finally approaching. For a creature that had lived a life of total solitude, the elder found that teaching the newborn was more rewarding than it had ever expected. But the cub was restless and full of energy, frequently exposing itself to human eyes despite the elder's constant warnings to stay hidden. Then one day the cub simply vanished. Sensing a dark omen, The elder searched every corner of the mountain until it found the young one in the north trapped and surrounded by a band of humans. The elder reflected on how humans never tire of their greed regardless of the warnings they are given. Seeing that the cub lacked the strength to save itself, the elder realized it would have to intervene, knowing that their encounter would finally end in the bloodshed it had tried so hard to avoid. But before the beast could strike, a figure descended from the heavens like a bolt of lightning. A man appeared in the center of the clearing, leaving the white tiger stunned by his sudden arrival. The trapped humans were thrown into a panic, demanding to know who he was and where he had come from. Without a word, the mysterious man drew his blade and began to systematically carve through the martial artist. His movements were a blur of lethal efficiency, slicing through the crowd one after another. The humans realized too late that they were facing an apex master and screamed for their comrades to flee. The white tiger watched the slaughter in silence, noting that the man had eliminated every single threat in the blink of an eye. It wondered if this was just another greedy human fighting his own kind for the core. But it sensed an aura of overwhelming power from him that it couldn't even begin to measure. The elder tiger worried that if this man turned his blade toward the young successor, there would be no way to protect it. The young cub, terrified by the bloodsucker sword, snarled in a defensive stance. The mysterious man simply flicked the blood from his blade and cursed the damn bastards who dared to threaten the guardian of the sacred mountain. He issued a cold decree. From that day forward, anyone who set foot on the mountain would meet their end at his hand. The white tiger realized then that this was its first encounter with the man who would change everything. The mysterious man calmly flicks the blood off his blade and curses those who dared to threaten the guardian of sacred Baekdu Mountain. In a cold voice, he declares that from that day on, anyone who steps onto the mountain will die by his hand. At that moment, the white tiger realizes this is its first meeting with the man who will change everything. The mysterious warrior then looks at the small white tiger cub and gives a gentle, comforting smile, completely different from the destruction he just caused. He says it seems the little one was not hurt, showing clear relief. However, the young spirit creature is not convinced so easily. It lets out a low growl, its fur standing up as it stays alert and defensive. Seeing that he is no longer needed, the man prepares to leave. Before going, he gives one last piece of advice, saying that next time the cub should not show itself to humans so carelessly. From the shadows of a nearby ridge, the elder white tiger comes down to stand beside the cub. It watches the man walking away, feeling deeply confused. Most humans who come here are blinded by their desire for spiritual essence. But this man killed the greedy invaders and left without even looking back. The tiger wonders who this strange person could be. In all its hundreds of years of life, it has never met a human so unusual and unpredictable. From that day on, the tiger's curiosity grows stronger. It decides to keep watching the man, who eventually settles on the sacred mountain to train his martial arts. From a distance, the tiger observes his harsh training, thinking that if a man this powerful ever decided to hunt them, it would be a disaster. For 5 years, the tiger and the cub silently watch him like guardians of the mountain peaks. The man proves to be very strange, spending his days driving away intruders and improving his skills without rest. The tiger begins to notice a pattern in the man's violence. People from the central plains who come from the north are killed without mercy. But those coming from the peninsula are mostly spared. The warrior often shouts at those who escape, warning them that if they ever come back, they will die. The white tiger is confused by this selective kindness, realizing that the man chooses who lives and who dies. As time passes, the tension slowly fades. The young wind white tiger, being more curious and less suspicious, receives help from the man several times and eventually forms a real bond with him. They are often seen together near the mountain waterfalls. The man meditates while the cub plays in the water, splashing around and chasing fish in the pool. Later, the man builds a simple house on the mountainside. The elder white tiger still watches from far away, telling itself not to trust a human so easily, at least not until it reaches its own ascension. But one afternoon, the man suddenly breaks the silence. He looks toward where the tiger is hiding and casually calls out to it, calling it Mr. Tiger. He says they have been sharing the mountain and even their food for a long time, and since he is bored, he invites the tiger to come down and have a drink with him. At first, the white tiger ignores him and turns away. The man then loudly complains about being ignored, saying he knows the tiger can understand him. The tiger thinks to itself that this human is truly shameless. Still, after some time, it gives in. It has lived for centuries, but this is the first human who has ever spoken to it so casually. After a whole month of constant bothering, the tiger finally joins him. They sit together, and the tiger drinks the wine the man offers while listening to his endless stream of silly jokes and stories. As they drink, the man says that drinking wine with fresh mountain water makes the taste even better. He teases the tiger, saying that since it can drink so well, he wonders how it stayed away from alcohol for so long. The man, whose name is revealed to be Sakyong, starts talking about his past. He shares stories about being a high-ranking officer on the southern peninsula. He complains that they should have defeated the arrogant northerners and brought back the glory of ancient Goguryeo. The white tiger listens quietly and realizes that even though Sakyong has godlike strength, his complaints are just like any other humans. He complains about foolish scholars and kings who refuse to listen. Still, for the first time in its long life, the tiger finds itself enjoying someone's company. The experience feels new and refreshing. During this time, the white tiger reveals its biggest secret, the ability to turn into a human. When Sakyong sees this for the first time, he is completely shocked. He stammers in disbelief, realizing he is truly standing before a divine spirit. He finds the idea of a tiger turning into a human fascinating, but his thoughts quickly drift in a different direction. With an awkward cough, he asks if the tiger could turn into a beautiful woman next time. As their relationship grows stronger, Sakyong becomes excited that the tiger is interested in his training. He decides to teach the tiger his blade technique. Laughing, he says that while he was not allowed to teach his family's style to other people, no one ever said anything about teaching a tiger. The white tiger throws itself fully into learning, and what started as a way to pass time soon becomes a serious pursuit of mastery. Sakyong is amazed at how quickly the tiger learns. When they begin practicing what humans call cultivation techniques, something incredible happens. Sakyong observes the tiger's human form and notices something very unusual. A human already has an essence inside their body, but the tiger begins to form a second essence in its dantian. The creature now has two separate sources of power, its natural spiritual core and a new energy created through martial training. This discovery pushes the tiger to train even harder under Sakyong's guidance. Over time, the tiger even starts speaking like him, using a rough and honest tone. One day, it jokes and asks Sakyong if he even has any real human friends. Hurt by the comment, Sakyong leaves the mountain for the first time in years and later returns with a companion. As the saying goes, similar people become friends. The man he brings back is named Akui, and he is just as strong and lively as Sakyong. The tiger is surprised that Sakyong, who seems to dislike people from the Central Plains, has a northern barbarian as his best friend. Sakyong simply shrugs and says that even among them, you can find a good person. Akoi watches the spirit creature and laughs, teasing Sakyong by saying that he must really hate people if he ended up befriending a tiger. Akoi is full of life and, like Sakyong, has no interest in taking the tiger's essence. The time spent with Sakyong and Akoi becomes the happiest period of the white tiger's life. It feels like heaven has given it one last gift before its time ends. That happiness lasts until the day of its ascension. A golden light begins to shine from the tiger's body. It smiles at its two friends and says that everyone who meets must eventually part. Sakyong wishes it a safe journey and jokes that he will train hard enough to grow wings and catch up, telling the tiger not to act proud just because it got there first. Akoi looks around and asks why the little cub is not there. The elder tiger explains that the cub has been avoiding this moment because it hates goodbyes, but says that if it misses this, it is its own loss. The tiger feels calm and ready to leave. But suddenly, a violent explosion echoes from the other side of the mountain, breaking the moment. Sakyong immediately turns toward the sound, sensing an intruder. Akoi feels a strong surge of energy and wonders if it is another creature. But the white tiger feels a deep fear. Its instincts tell it that this presence is far more dangerous than a normal beast. Sakyong steps forward and tells the tiger not to worry and to focus on ascending. He promises to handle the situation himself. The tiger tries to warn him that the energy feels strange and dangerous, possibly beyond his control. But Sakyong laughs and reminds the tiger that before they became friends, he was known as the greatest warrior of Goguryeo. Full of confidence, he walks toward the threat. His words calm the tiger, and it tries to focus again on its ascension. But suddenly, a terrifying scream fills the air. Akoi recognizes the voice. It is the young-wind white tiger. The elder tiger realizes the cub is in pain and fears the attackers are after its essence. Without hesitation, the tiger gives up its ascension. The golden light around it fades as it rushes toward the sound. Akoi is shocked and shouts that it is throwing away its chance to become a god. But the tiger replies that ascension means nothing if Sakyong and the cub are in danger. When they arrive, they see a horrifying scene. A man stands there coldly, holding the spiritual core of the young white tiger in his hand. The cub has been brutally destroyed. Even Sakyong, the great warrior of Goguryeo, lies defeated, his body torn apart and both his arms cut off. The man, known as the Blade Lord, looks at the elder tiger without emotion. He comments that since the tiger can take human form, it is an even greater prize than he expected. Realizing there is another source of power, Sakyong, barely alive, trembles as he begs the tiger to run. He calls the Blade Lord a monster. Seeing its family destroyed, the white tiger loses all control. It falls into complete madness, filled with a hatred so deep that it overwhelms everything. The tiger remembers almost nothing of what happens next. It only knows that its body moved because of its hatred. When it finally regains its senses, the enemy is gone, and the once beautiful peaks of Mount Cheongbai have been destroyed by its rampage. The tiger cries out for Sakyong and the cub, but its mind is still broken with grief. It is only when Akui strikes it hard that the tiger comes back to its senses. With a serious face, Akui tells it to stop because Sakyong is dying. He asks if the tiger plans to destroy the whole world before listening to his friend's final words. Tears fall from the tiger's eyes as it runs to Sakyong. The warrior is close to death but still manages a weak, bitter smile. He says he thought today would be a good day to watch his friend ascend, but instead it became a cursed day. He admits that he did not have enough strength to protect what mattered. The white tiger refuses to accept this. In desperation, it bites its own arm, trying to save him. It remembers an old legend that if a martial artist drinks the blood of a white tiger, they can gain godlike power and healing. But as the blood flows, the tiger realizes too late that this desperate decision will become the worst mistake it has ever made. After drinking the white tiger's blood, the beast's eyes begin to throb, and veins swell across its body. It lets out a scream filled with unbearable pain. The white tiger explains that Sakyong's arms had been cut off and his dantian had been destroyed, which was the real problem. His body was already too weak, so it could not handle even a small part of the creature's spiritual power. Fear and shock take over as the white tiger understands that this is not how things were supposed to happen. Even while standing at the edge of death, Sakyong manages to give a faint smile. He comments that the blood is good, saying that at least he got to taste something valuable before dying. He quietly adds that if it were not for that cursed monster, this could have been a beautiful day. Akui begins to shake, and the white tiger falls to his knees, shouting Sakyong's name in despair. Tears run down Akui's face as he tells his friend that he should not die in a place like this. The white tiger is filled with rage, explaining that watching his friend die right in front of him causes his hatred to rise once again. All he can think about is finding that unknown man from the Central Plains and tearing him apart piece by piece. Sakyong tells the white tiger that he has one final favor to ask. Surprised, the creature asks what it could be. Struggling to stay conscious, Sakyong begs him to ascend and not throw away his life's goal just to take revenge. The white tiger tells him not to say such things, but Sakyong simply laughs softly, saying that the beast still looks stubborn. He then turns to Akui and says that if something happens, he wants him to be the one to stop the white tiger. The white tiger thinks about how even at the brink of death, Sakyong is still worrying about them. Angrily, the white tiger asks if he is speaking like this because he doubts his ability to kill that enemy. Sakyong struggles to breathe and jokingly says that it seems the white tiger has only learned how to brag, just like him. He adds that such talk should wait until he can actually defeat Akui first. Slowly, the light begins to fade from Sakyong's eyes. Akui shouts his name, begging him to stay awake and asking how someone as great as Sakyong could die after being defeated. The white tiger explains that the focus disappears completely from Sakyong's eyes. Akui shakes his body, but the soul that is leaving can no longer be held back. At the very moment of death, Sakyong wonders why he can no longer see their faces and says he does not understand why everything is going dark. Before he can even finish his words, he dies just like that. At that same moment, the world the white tiger knows falls apart. They hold a funeral near the lake on the mountain peak, where the creature places Sakyong's sword on his grave. The white tiger swears to take revenge, saying he does not care whether the man who killed his friend is a monster or a god. He vows that he will find him no matter what and will not rest until he tears out his throat while he is still alive. Akui challenges him, asking if he is really going to ignore his friend's final wish just for revenge. He reminds him that Sakyong asked him to ascend, not to kill. The white tiger warns Akui not to stand in his way, saying that if he keeps pushing, he might kill him too. The white tiger explains that once hatred and the desire to kill stains spiritual power, it slowly becomes corrupted and demonic, making it impossible to ascend unless it is purified. Akui tells him that he will carry that anger himself. He declares that if even he cannot bear that rage at the place of ascension, then the white tiger can do whatever he wants. The white tiger turns to him angrily and asks if he is truly ready to carry such hatred. The white tiger explains that Akui stood against him, allowing him to release his anger, killing intent, and hatred once every 10 years. He says that humans can forget things over time, but as a spiritual creature, even after 100 years, he could not forget that death. He cries at his friend's grave, saying that everything was taken from him. His hatred grows stronger with each passing day until he wants to kill every person from the Central Plains. The white tiger continues, saying that he killed everyone who entered the mountain, hating the same kind of people that Sakyong once hated. With blood always on his hands, there is no purification, only a deeper and darker killing intent. Then, in the present day, while fighting the men of the Blade God's Six Martial Clan, a bald man laughs and says it is strange that every move the creature uses is meant to kill in a single strike. The white tiger recognizes the technique and realizes he is seeing traces of that same monster from his past. These men are clearly connected to that hateful enemy. The white tiger loses control completely and is consumed by rage. Thinking that Sakyong's spirit is finally guiding him, he decides that the promise no longer matters and that today he will wipe these men from existence. The scene returns to the present, where the white tiger has turned into a huge, raging beast, with Sakyong's sword lying nearby as it watches the destruction. Akui moves quickly, picks up his friend's sword, and manages to break through the storm created by the white tiger. Using the blade, he strikes the white tiger's neck. The creature comes back to its senses, feeling as if something just passed through it. In front of him, he sees Akui turning toward him. As he watches, he wonders why Akui looks like he is about to cry. He also wonders why Sakyong's sword is in his hand. Remembering that Akui had promised never to use weapons in his life, he lets out a quiet breath as his vision starts to fade. Realizing that this is finally the end, and that it is happening because of his own choices, drops of blood fall as he sinks into the lake. Akui has cut off the white tiger's head. As he dies, the white tiger remembers the days he spent with his friend, drinking together, caring for the young white tiger cub, and teaching each other martial arts. He remembers drinking with Akui while Sakyong played with the cub. His final thought is that maybe this outcome is for the best. The storms created by his power slowly disappear into the air. As Akui watches him sink into the deep mountain lake, he promises to carry all that hatred himself. He says that he hopes the white tiger can meet Sakyong again in the afterlife and adds that it will not be long before he joins them. When that time comes, he looks forward to drinking together again, just like before. He is also filled with the memories they once shared. He then turns to Yeo-Woon and the Blade Lord, who are still fighting, and says that things there will soon be decided. At that moment, Yeo-Woon releases the third movement of the heaven-slaying extreme sword. Invisible blades strike the Blade Lord from all directions until he falls to the ground, badly wounded and bleeding. The Blade Lord wonders what just happened and how he could have been defeated so easily. According to the records left behind, the demon god should not have been able to defeat him at this stage. He admits that he has lost in every possible way. Even after absorbing the essence of the great Rakshasa, he was weaker in internal energy. In terms of techniques, Yeo-Woon displayed a sword skill that went beyond even the heavenly demonic sword art. The demon god was not supposed to gain such power so early. He wonders where everything went wrong and laments that he was meant to gain eternal life, become immortal, and rule the Murim. Losing to the combat god was understandable since he was an unknown factor, but the demon god should have been predictable. His followers are frozen in shock, asking if the Blade Lord has truly been defeated and if the demon god is really stronger. Another says it is impossible. Even the mummy feels shaken and realizes that the situation is dangerous and their morale is falling apart. He understands that if they do not act quickly, everything they have built will collapse. The right great elder speaks to Hwang Heol through telepathy, saying that he and the left elder will lead the remaining forces to hold off those two monsters. He tells him to quickly retreat with the Blade Lord and the other leaders. Hwang Heol asks how they can sacrifice themselves and suggests taking all their forces into battle, but the bald man tells him that these enemies are beyond his ability. He explains that they will use the divine blood reversal gathering technique to die while taking their enemies with them. Hearing this plan, Hwang Heol is shocked but decides to follow their decision. They entrust the Blade Lord's safety to him. The right great elder turns to the others and orders everyone to listen. He declares that if they fail to kill those two monsters here, their school will have no future. He commands them to remove all limits and use any method necessary to kill the enemy. Though surprised, they obey and transform into monstrous forms using the forbidden technique. Several of them rush toward Akui. He watches them approach and recognizes them as evil practitioners of dark arts. He plants his friend's sword into the frozen ground and says that this is perfect, as he needed a way to release his anger. The warriors of the Blade God's 6 martial clan charge at him, shouting for his death. But Akui gathers power into his fist and releases a powerful strike, tearing them apart instantly. He challenges them to come at him, declaring that none of them will survive. With pure hatred in his eyes, he swears to destroy every single one of them to avenge his friend and the 2 white tigers. The battlefield is no longer a place of honor or fair fighting. It has turned into a real slaughterhouse. After the earth-shaking impact of Akui's devastating attack, the warriors of the Blade God's 6 martial clan are left in a state that goes against all natural laws of life and biology. Their bodies are torn apart, and their limbs are flying through the air like trash. Yet, they still refuse to die. Even with their arms cut off and the lower halves of their bodies completely destroyed, these fanatics continue to move forward without stopping. They crawl through the mud mixed with blood, driven by a mad obsession that ignores their basic instinct to survive. As they rush toward him with wild, animal-like aggression, Akui prepares his next attack. His eyes narrow as he watches the swarm coming closer. He quietly remarks that it is truly a terrifying sight. These are men who are so deeply consumed by their dark desires that they have tried to go beyond being human, turning themselves into monsters trapped inside human bodies. He understands with cold certainty that this battle will not end with surrender or retreat. This nightmare will only end when every single one of them is completely crushed into the ground. While Akui holds the front line, the situation on the other side of the clearing changes from chaos to something even more suffocating. Yeo-Woon, the unmatched demon god, stands calmly with a chilling presence. From his higher position, he looks down at the Blade Lord, who lies broken and humiliated on the ground. There is no mercy in Yeo-Woon's eyes, only the cold thinking of a predator. As Yeo-Woon steps forward to finish him and end his life once and for all, the air behind him suddenly fills with killing intent. 2 elders of the clan, realizing their leader is about to die, activate a forbidden technique called the Divine Blood Reversal Gathering. Their bodies swell with violent and unnatural energy as they sacrifice their own lifespans for a short burst of overwhelming strength. They leap through the air and aim their attacks directly at Yeo-Woon's back in a desperate surprise attack. However, Yeo-Woon does not even turn around. With a simple movement of his wrist, he creates the formless blade, a weapon made purely from internal energy. He easily blocks their desperate attacks with perfect precision, and the sound of their clashing energy echoes like thunder. He quickly moves into a counterattack, pushing the 2 elders into panic. As he fights them, Yeo-Woon studies their abilities like an experienced warrior. He realizes that their raw power has risen far beyond the highest level of the profound realm. Even without their dangerous blood reversal technique, these men are strong enough to stand equal to the 5 greatest masters in the martial world. The elders, realizing they cannot win alone, become even more desperate. They coordinate their movements and launch a combined attack using all the strength they have left. They scream loudly, demanding the demon god's death, their voices breaking under the pressure of their forbidden power. Yeo-Woon easily understands their intentions. He sees clearly that they do not plan to survive. They only want to drag him down with them. Even while facing two top-level masters at the same time, Yeo-Woon moves with a smoothness that feels almost divine. The right great elder grits his teeth in pain and anger. Inside his mind, he swears that he will endure no matter what. His goal is no longer to win, but to survive long enough to protect his master. He is determined to buy even a few seconds so the Blade Lord can escape. Seeing the elders struggling, other members of the Blade God 6 martial clan feel a false sense of hope. They also activate the divine blood reversal technique, their veins swelling as they charge toward Yeo-Woon. They believe that since the demon god is busy fighting the elders, his guard must be down. They whisper among themselves that if luck is on their side, they might be the ones to land the killing blow and gain eternal glory. Two warriors manage to break through the chaos and strike Yeo-Woon directly in the middle of his back. Their swords, filled with powerful energy, hit him with a loud impact. But the victory they expect never comes. Instead, they freeze in horror as their high-quality blades shatter into countless sharp pieces the moment they touch his skin. The right great elder, watching this, is completely shocked. He cannot understand what kind of defense could block sword energy so easily. In his understanding, sword energy can cut through iron and split huge rocks like paper. He stares at Yeo-Woon's back and wonders if this man is even human. Yeo-Woon slowly shifts his stance and slightly turns his head toward the elder. He calmly asks if the elder really thought his defense was just some simple armor. Before the elder can even react, Yeo-Woon's formless blade flashes. The movement is too fast for the eye to follow, and it slices across the elder's face, destroying the light in his only remaining eye. The battlefield fills with the elder's painful screams as he grabs his ruined face. His companion shouts his name in panic, but the sound is cut off. Yeo-Woon's blade continues moving, and in one smooth motion, the right great elder's head is sent flying into the air. The remaining clan members freeze in shock, calling out for their fallen elder. But Yeo-Woon gives them no time to grieve. He turns and kills them both before their voices can even fade away. He looks at the rest and coldly tells them to worry about their own lives instead of the dead. Nearby, Lord Wangheol stays focused while others are distracted by the elder's death. He sharply reminds them that their only goal is to save the Blade Lord. Everything else does not matter. They reach their broken leader, and one member lifts him onto his back. Wangheol takes command and orders everyone to retreat as fast as possible, hoping they can escape into the confusion of the battlefield before Yeo-Woon turns his full attention to them. Yeo-Woon watches them run and begins to laugh quietly, a cold and chilling sound. He looks across the battlefield and counts around 200 men still alive. He sighs and says that killing them one by one would take too long. A light sweat appears on his forehead as he gathers his internal energy. He calls out to the fleeing group, asking if they really think such a simple attempt to delay him would work. He raises one hand toward the sky, and almost immediately, the heavens respond. Huge black clouds begin to swirl violently, and the air becomes heavy with the smell of blood. The warriors of the Blade God 6 martial clan look up, their faces turning pale as they realize that the man they are fighting is no longer just a martial artist. He has truly become a demon god. Yeo-Woon lowers his hand and calmly says two words, "Strike down." In an instant, the sky splits open. Massive bolts of pure white lightning crash down from the clouds, striking every member of the clan with perfect accuracy. It becomes a complete massacre from above, leaving behind nothing but burned ground and ashes. A short distance away, the Blade Lord and a small group of survivors manage to create some distance from the center of destruction. Even so, they can still feel the terrifying power of Yeo-Woon. Lord Wangheol looks back and is shaken by what he sees. He knows that Yeo-Woon absorbed the core of the dragon turtle, which gave him control over thunder energy, but this level of power goes beyond all reason. He realizes with fear that Yeo-Woon has gone beyond being human. He once believed the Blade Lord was second only to the gods, but now that belief is breaking apart. The Blade Lord, lying on his subordinate's back, is suffering deeply inside. His wounds should be healing quickly because of his core, but something is stopping it. He realizes that the demonic energy in Yeo-Woon's formless blade is acting like poison, preventing his body from recovering. A deep feeling of despair fills him. He has lost his strongest warriors, his most loyal elders, and his entire army, only to end in complete defeat. Out of his once powerful force, only 8 Blade clan lords remain. This is the first time he has felt such hopelessness since his past encounter with the Eastern caste god. Forcing himself to endure the pain, he speaks to the survivors. He shouts that their grand plan will never stop and tells them to remember the blood and sacrifices made today. He promises that one day, with his own hands, he will kill the demon god. But his vow is suddenly cut off by a violent explosion of energy right in front of them. Wang Heol gasps as he recognizes the sky flash technique. From the smoke, Yeo-Woon appears, blocking their escape. He casually throws 2 objects onto the ground, the severed heads of the left and right elders. He looks at the Blade Lord and calmly says that there will be no next time for a fake Blade God. The remaining clan members are horrified at the sight. But the Blade Lord is filled with anger instead. He shouts at Yeo-Woon, calling him a bastard and saying that even if he has not yet fully inherited the title, the demon god has no right to speak of the Blade God. Yeo-Woon pauses when he hears the word, inherited. He thinks about its meaning and realizes that, for this clan, the title of Blade God is a symbolic position, similar to the heavenly demon in his own demonic cult. He remembers the strange warning from his future descendant, Cheon Yeo-Woon, who spoke about someone traveling through time. Yeo-Woon wonders if someone from this clan in the future simply took that name, since the records of the original Blade God explained how time travel works. As he stands there thinking, the Blade Lord becomes even more furious at being ignored and demands an answer. Yeo-Woon finally looks at him and finishes his thoughts. He admits that he was confused for a moment, but now he is certain of one thing. He looks directly at the Blade Lord and tells him, "It's not you." The Blade Lord, deeply insulted, demands to know what he means. Yeo-Woon does not explain further. He simply says that it is something the fake Blade Lord does not need to know. When the Blade Lord tries to speak again with authority, Yeo-Woon releases his aura, filling the area with overwhelming pressure. He mocks the Blade Lord, saying that a leader who sacrifices his own men and runs away after losing does not deserve to lead a clan, and certainly does not deserve to question him. At that moment, the difference between the false god and the true one becomes completely clear. The Blade God was a name that echoed through martial history like thunder. To the members of the 6 martial clans, he was not just a founder but a god of war and an absolute being. For centuries, people in the martial world spoke quietly about his strength, calling him the greatest martial artist to ever live. Even groups like the Orthodox Martial Arts Alliance and the Great Demonic Cult, through their spies and secret networks, knew the frightening truth that the 6 martial clans were his direct descendant. However, this was only the surface of a much deeper and darker secret. No one, not even the smartest strategist, could have guessed the truth hidden at the core of the clan's origin. Yeo-Woon's aura suddenly burst out, filling the area with overwhelming and suffocating power. He mocked the Blade Lord for being a coward, pointing out that a leader who ran away after defeat by sacrificing his own men was not worthy of leading a clan, nor worthy of standing before him to ask questions. At that moment, the difference between a false god and a true one became clear. Cheon Yeo-Woon looked coldly at his opponent and declared that he was nothing but a fake. The man standing beside the Blade Lord watched in growing fear as his master began to shake. He thought to himself that if even ordinary warriors felt such hatred toward the demon god, then the Blade Lord's anger must be like a blazing inferno. He believed his master was holding that anger back and focusing all his strength on controlling his chi just to survive. Inside, the Blade Lord was desperately racing against time. He knew he had to remove the violent foreign energy damaging his meridians. Only then could his body begin its natural healing process. He clearly understood that if they were defeated here, their sect might never recover from the loss. Breaking his silence at last, the Blade Lord asked Yeo-Woon what he wanted to know. At the same time, Nano's mechanical voice spoke inside Yeo-Woon's mind, reporting that the injured man's energy was rising quickly. Yeo-Woon was not surprised. He understood that the Blade Lord was stalling, buying time to remove the harmful energy from his body. Yeo-Woon remembered how he had once tried to break Blade Master Lee Beck using hypnosis and drugs, but the man had lost his sanity after only a few sentences. Now facing a leader, Yeo-Woon decided to change his approach. He chose to pretend ignorance and play along with the delay, hoping to draw out the truth. He looked directly at the Blade Lord and questioned him about his claim of changing the future, testing whether he truly knew what was to come. A heavy silence filled the area as the meaning of Yeo-Woon's question settled in. Yeo-Woon himself considered the possibility, forming his thoughts around a bold idea. He wondered what he would do if he were sent back to the past to change history. He thought about his own descendant who had injected him with nanomachines. If the original Blade God had truly come from the future, then his descendants might also possess knowledge or items from that time. Wang Heol was shaken, unable to understand how the demon god could have guessed a secret known only to the inner circle of their sect. In panic, the Blade Lord sent a telepathic message to Wang Heol, demanding to know if their sacred records had been exposed. Wang Heol insisted that it was impossible for anyone to infiltrate their stronghold, and even if the records were stolen, only he and 2 supreme elders could understand them. However, Yeo-Woon heard everything through Nano's advanced sensors. The mention of records reminded him of his grandfather, who had once spoken about similar mysterious text. He realized that the strange characters they could not read were likely written in a simplified script from the future, the same script his grandfather had once copied with great effort. This confirmed his suspicion that they were talking about records related to that person. While Wang Heol continued to reassure his master that the demon god could not know the truth, the Blade Lord replied that nothing in this world was certain. Then a frightening thought struck him. According to the records, Cheon Yeo-Woon should still have been a young cult leader, nowhere near this level of power. That was why the Blade Lord had acted early against Kaian Yujong, hoping to stop Yeo-Woon's rise before it began. He admitted to himself that although he had noticed changes in history caused by that mysterious person, he had considered them minor. He believed that even if Yeo-Woon was progressing faster than expected, he was still following the same path. The records had warned him never to let his guard down, which was why he had rushed his plan. Yet every time, Yeo-Woon had interfered, taking the cores of the fire chain, the dragon turtle, and the white-winged tiger. Grinding his teeth, the Blade Lord realized his mistake. Yeo-Woon was not just the reincarnation of the heavenly demon, he was something more. In anger, he accused Yeo-Woon of also knowing the future. Wang Heol was left speechless by this claim. Yeo-Woon understood that his enemy had completely misunderstood him, but he saw no reason to correct them. If they believed he was a time traveler, he would use that belief to his advantage. He responded that they were perceptive and asked if they now understood that he was beyond their trick. Wang Heol urgently argued with his master through telepathy, saying that the records mentioned something called TP, which would detect any interference in the past unless certain internal components were removed. He believed that no one except that mysterious person could bypass such a system. The mention of TP reminded Yeo-Woon of the encrypted message left by his descendant and the warning from a strange doctor. He recalled that even an identity chip was dangerous and that more implants would increase the chance of being tracked by TP. He concluded that TP must be some kind of system or force that prevented changes to the timeline. This explained why his descendant had been in such a hurry to leave. But it also led to a shocking thought. If that person had stayed behind, it meant he had found a way to hide. Yeo-Woon realized that the Blade God had not simply appeared during the demonic sword era. He had gone even further back in time, to the era of the original founder, and had shaped history itself. Before Yeo-Woon could fully process this, the Blade Lord forced himself to stand. His body had finally removed the last of the negative energy, and his healing had begun. As his flesh started to recover, he charged at Yeo-Woon with a roar, declaring that the demon god must die there. He gathered all his true chi into his palm, which shone with a bright golden light. He believed this was his final chance. Thinking Yeo-Woon was distracted, he prepared to release a single, devastating strike that combined all his power. But Yeo-Woon was already far ahead. As purple lightning split the sky, he told the Blade Lord that he was walking into his own death. He revealed that he had been aware of the Blade Lord's chi movements from the beginning. In an instant, an invisible blade appeared in the air, vibrating with such power that it seemed to distort reality. Yeo-Woon stated that he had been in perfect condition the entire time. The Blade Lord immediately recognized the technique. It was the unification of power, a supreme skill that the previous Blade Lord had mastered only after 20 years of isolation. This attack compressed time and space into a single point. To others, it appeared as just a flash of light, but in truth, it contained all 24 forms of the heavenly demon sword art released in a single moment. The explosion that followed was devastating. A massive wave of energy tore through the area, throwing the warriors of the 6 martial clans away like leaves caught in a storm. Wang Heol watched in desperation as the Blade Lord managed to block the first attack. His hand broke apart under the pressure but then began to regenerate in a horrifying way. Yeo-Woon, with a face full of divine anger, told him that he should give up any hope of recovery. He then followed with a second strike so powerful that it became a pillar of light, cutting through the forest for miles and leaving behind a huge smoking crater where the Blade Lord had once stood. Wang Heol screamed for his master, but nothing remained except ashes. When he demanded to know what Yeo-Woon had done, the demon god replied that he had completely erased the Blade Lord from existence. The remaining survivors began to tremble with a fear beyond death. Yeo-Woon looked at the rest of the men and told them that it was now their turn, giving them a choice between fighting with honor or surrendering in disgrace. Wang Heol ordered everyone to scatter, hoping that if even one person survived to warn the stronghold, their legacy might continue. Yeo-Woon watched them flee and noted their determination. He calculated that he still had 20% of his true chi left, which was more than enough to finish the battle. He rose into the sky, his figure blocking the sun. Against such enemies, he decided to use the extreme cold iron cutting ice sword and the profound cold ice heaven art. Dozens of invisible frost blades formed around him. He ordered Nano to track every target. Nano's mechanical voice confirmed the command, activating a multi-lock-on system and turning the battlefield into a grid of unavoidable death. Yeo-Woon then released a massive storm of invisible ice blades toward the last survivors of the Blade God's 6 martial clan. These icy weapons shot through the air like deadly comets, killing the remaining enemies one by one with precise accuracy. Using Nano's advanced system, Yeo-Woon scanned the battlefield for any remaining life. His sensors confirmed that almost everyone was dead, but he noticed that one person was still alive in the distance. He turned his attention to Wang Heol, who was struggling to survive and barely managing to block the endless attacks of ice swords. Yeo-Woon gave him no chance to rest and continued attacking from every direction. The pressure became overwhelming, and eventually one of the blades struck Wang Heol's weapon with such force that it shattered into pieces. Left without a weapon, he had no choice but to use a secret technique, channeling his internal energy into his bare hands to deflect the attack. Even then, he looked terrified, wondering what kind of monstrous power was behind these blades. Suddenly, another wave of ice swords came down on him, leaving him completely exposed. The first blade destroyed his right arm, turning it into a bloody mess. The second broke his legs and threw him to the ground. Finally, a last strike pierced him from behind, creating a large hole through his chest and killing him instantly. A signal from Nano appeared in Yeo-Woon's vision, confirming that the target was dead. Yeo-Woon let out a deep sigh and wondered if he had finally eliminated all the top leaders. He realized that the only thing left was their main stronghold at Huangshan in Hangzhou, located in Zhejiang province. He understood that if he destroyed that place, he could wipe out the Blade God's 6 martial clan completely. During his journey south, he planned to recover the secret records his grandfather had copied and hidden in Hebei province, hoping to reveal the truth about the Blade God. He reminded himself that his immediate goal was to return to the Fist God. However, just as he was about to leave, he suddenly felt a terrifying and predatory energy behind him. He immediately turned around, cold sweat forming on his forehead as he felt the atmosphere change. Even though the feeling lasted only a moment, the sword energy he sensed was extremely sharp and refined. He realized that it was coming from the direction where he had left the Fist God. He found it hard to believe that anything could happen to such a powerful warrior, someone even the Blade Lord had struggled to defeat. Sensing danger, Yeo-Woon activated his nano suit, which quickly covered his entire body. He then rushed forward at full speed, leaving Wang Heol's broken body behind. Soon after Yeo-Woon disappeared, a mysterious man appeared beside Wang Heol's body. The stranger turned the body over, checked his pulse, and observed that his heartbeat was weak and fading. He remarked that even with his heart destroyed, the man had endured with incredible determination. The man was Gulwon, one of the 4 spirits of the Blade God's 6 martial clan. These warriors were not normal humans, as each had been given the blood of 5 spirit beasts by the Blade God and served directly under him, ranking just below the Blade Lord. Gulwon pressed several vital points on Wang Heol's damaged body before taking out a small bottle. He opened it and poured the liquid into Wang Heol's mouth, showing disgust at its strong smell. He mockingly questioned whether the man was truly dead. Almost immediately, Wang Heol's eyes opened as he gasped for air. Under the effect of the powerful medicine, his wounds began to heal in a disturbing way. His destroyed arm reformed, his broken legs repaired themselves, and even the hole in his chest closed until his body was fully restored. Wang Heol sat up, shaking from the mental shock of returning from death. Gulwon gave a dry compliment on his effort and asked how it felt to come back from the edge of death. Wang Heol responded bitterly, asking if Gulwon would speak so casually if he had been the one who died. Gulwon ignored his reaction and pointed out that he was being ungrateful for someone who had just been saved. He added that with his spiritual power sealed, Wang Heol had clearly been pushed to his limit. Wang Heol reacted with disdain at the mention of the seal and admitted with fear that even at full strength, he could not have won that battle. He stated that the boy was nothing less than a complete monster. Gulwon was surprised to hear such a strong judgment from Wang Heol, who ranked second among the 4 spirits. He noted that Yeo-Woon's growth had gone far beyond their expectations. Wang Heol warned that the boy's growth was terrifying, as if he was becoming stronger with every moment. When Gulwon questioned whether the situation was really that serious, Wang Heol confirmed it with fear, stating that even the Blade Lord had been completely defeated. He believed that Yeo-Woon had reached such a high level much earlier than expected, disrupting the natural course of events. He insisted that they needed to stop him immediately. Wang Heol revealed that Yeo-Woon had already obtained 4 of the 5 spirit cores and explained that if he gained the last one, he would reach a level of power none of them could oppose. Gulwon felt confused because earlier reports had suggested that Yeo-Woon only had 3 cores. Wang Heol corrected him, explaining that Yeo-Woon had definitely taken the Great Pang's core as well, as he had sensed its unique power coming from him. Finally, Wang Heol urgently asked whether the other spirit commanders were on their way, believing that they would need the full strength of their clan to have any chance of stopping him. Gulwon smiled with a cold and confident expression, making it clear that the others were not needed. He told Wang Heol, who was shocked, that if the report was correct, then everything was actually going perfectly, because that person had personally come to deal with the situation. The scene then shifted to the peaceful lake on top of the mountain, which had now turned into a place of complete destruction. When Yeo-Woon arrived, he was immediately frozen by what he saw. He found it hard to understand the terrifying sight in front of him. The Fist God was still standing, but both of his arms had been completely destroyed by a new and unknown enemy standing right before him. The mysterious opponent slowly walked toward the badly injured warrior and commented that it was impressive that he still refused to kneel even in such a condition. It was clear that the newcomer had also suffered damage, as there was a deep, round dent on his chest caused by a powerful punch from the Fist God's final attack. The stranger then turned his attention to Yeo-Woon and remarked that a very long time had passed. Yeo-Woon's thoughts began racing as he wondered how they could know each other, but then the truth struck him suddenly. He recognized the face clearly. It was the same face he had seen in the ancient video recordings stored deep inside Nano's memory. The mysterious figure smiled and suggested that, under the circumstances, saying that it was nice to meet him would be more appropriate. He then addressed Yeo-Woon by his title, calling him the Demon God. At that moment, Yeo-Woon finally understood. The nightmare he had been chasing had appeared before him. The Blade God had at last arrived on the battlefield.